Okay, so this one is about the nature of influence. So influence is really the way that you create in the world, understanding that everything and everyone is sovereign and free. And in the state of mind where your intention is to influence the environment around you, the key to this is understanding the nature of the environment around you. Because the fundamental nature of nature is that it wants to thrive, to vigorously grow and expand. But it also wants to experience deeper and wider, a greater spectrum of experiences. It's, whilst it wants to endlessly create and be surprised and delighted by what it has the potential to become, it wants to transcend any obstacles and barriers that are limiting its ability to become more or experience more or to witness itself becoming more, to experience itself being more. And, fundamentally, as human beings, we resist most of our nature. And we don't like things that are painful. We don't like things that are uncomfortable, inconvenient. We're afraid of negative emotions. We're afraid of negative thoughts. Anything dark, we resist it, reject it, deny it, and pretend that we're okay. That we try and focus on things that are good and positive only, and we're just in huge resistance to anything negative. Oblivious to the fact that the greatest light that we want to experience, the highest emotions are beneath the darkest shadows, not above them. And so you have the scenario where a human being is a hybrid of a living, breathing being, a mind, and a spirit or a soul. Something that exists as pre-manifested reality, but enables us to experience emotion, which is non-physical. And so we're all of these things working together as one, yet each individual thing is sovereign and free and has its own nature. The nature of the mind is intelligence, logic and intelligence. It's the part of us that gives us thoughts, which can become visions. And then we interpret the meaning, and that sends a signal to our body in a language that it can understand. We can call that our perspective, the lens of our perspective. And whatever our perspective is, the body translates that into behavior, utilizing its own genius. The genius of the body is it's the alchemist. It's the master alchemist. That's its genius. Rarely do we appreciate the genius of the body as human beings. The genius of the soul is wisdom. It holds the wisdom of experience within it. And the genius of the mind is that it's the architect. It imagines everything before it materializes into form. So it is the architect that envisages, it imagines everything. And the combination of all three, and you have all of reality in front of you. You have existence. And so what is the nature of influence if you're all of these things? The truth is that you are observing, you are the observer. And you are observing yourself, experiencing itself as all three of those things. Attempting to work together as one thing. In the process of discovering who and what it is. And then at some point you realize, I am the observer. I can observe myself experiencing. And then you realize that you can shift your perspective into a state of being. And so then you're in the perspective of having the experience. You realize that you are the observed as well. And then you have the experience of imagining, and then you realize you are the mind as well. And so it's difficult. It's difficult to wrap your head around that you're observing all of these things. You are the witness. And you are the witnessed. And so what does that mean? Well, all of those aspects of you are sovereign and free as individual entities, but they're symbiotic, working together as one, and only through understanding the nature of each individual one can you begin to influence those parts of your own nature in ways that respect and honor its free will and its sovereignty. It's respecting and honoring the free will and sovereignty of the body, of the mind, and of the spirit is essential in order to live in a state of harmony. And so in order to influence the environment around you and influence those individual aspects of yourself, you have to understand their nature and their genius. So as I explained, the genius of the mind, imagination, the nature of imagination, it can envisage past, present, and future. It's omnipresent. It is, omnipotent. It is without limitation. Its nature is that it wants to soar, and it doesn't have limitations like money. There's nothing that can prevent your mind from soaring and imagining whatever it wants to imagine. It can imagine itself. It can imagine creating new worlds and new galaxies if it wants to. That's its nature, and that's its expectation. And so when you have a mind that not just believes, but understands and knows that everything is possible, that the potential to create is limitless, then it feels extraordinarily limited from the perspective of the body, for example. So then you have the soul, and its nature is experience. So it draws upon the wisdom of the records of all those that have had any form of experience. And the best way to think of the soul is because it's energy, it's pre-manifested reality. So it exists in space. And so it's like an ocean where it's all one thing, it's all connected. So, a soul is like a stream. So if you imagine an ocean, and then, off the ocean is a river, and off that river are streams. That's what the soul is like, but it's all one thing. So your soul knows and understands and draws from the collective wisdom of that one ocean. So that's every human being, that's all forms of life. That's the wisdom that it holds, that's its genius. And so through you, your soul is seeking to become more. not to become what has already been, not to become something that it was last week or in its 20s. It wants to become more. Wisdom is understanding gained through experience. And so that must be a new experience. In order for there to be new wisdom, it must be a new experience. So it wants to become more. Now, this is the challenging part of the soul, is that its nature is insatiable. It will never be satisfied. It always wants to become more, and it wants to, its desire is everything. Just wants more and more and more and more. A lot of human beings really wrestle with this part of their nature, in that, the essence of the soul, I've spoken about this in another podcast, is it's greed. The essence of greed means to have a selfish and persistent focus. Selfish and persistent desire, intense and selfish desire. And that's the nature of the soul. It wants more. And resist it at your peril. If you resist this part of your nature by trying to stay where you are, or trying to hold on to things, trying to go back to the past, by living in a book of photographs, this is driving your soul nuts. And the greedy part of your nature will just burst out of you, and it will express itself in whichever way it wants to. But you'll experience an intense desire to be greedy for no apparent reason. And so, the genius of the soul, wisdom. That wisdom has to have new experiences, and that experience becoming more. And then the body. Now, the body is the unrecognized genius, being the alchemist. The body is an extraordinary alchemical machine. Absolutely extraordinary. It is not only the manifestation of, some base elements that have all bonded together to form a myriad of different, cells and organisms and forms of life that exist within the body itself, but it is an alchemical machine. It has the ability to take any form of energy and refuse that into any other form of matter. It can break it down into its primordial parts, hydrogen, oxygen, and then refuse it into other atoms and molecules to create other forms of matter or life. Utterly extraordinary. Utterly extraordinary. And, its nature is to conquer its environment. And it will do that at any cost. And if any of you have experienced, being in fight or flight mode, the survival instinct, which is the aspect of us that will conquer whatever is in front of us by any means necessary, is extremely powerful. And, understanding the genius of the body, understanding that the signals that it receives, the way that it interprets the signals being received from its environment, is through the lens of our perspective. And the lens of our perspective is meaning. So whatever we are seeing It is our interpretation of what we are seeing, feeling, smelling, touching, tasting. It's the interpretation of what that means that sends the signals to the body that causes it to act or behave. And, we know, we've even proved this scientifically that, perception changes genes. We know this. So it's what you're perceiving about your environment, what the signals mean that are being interpreted by your body, that are sending new signals to your genes. And then those genes are saying, okay, produce this, create that, create a cancer cell or delete a cancer cell, kill all cancer cells. It's all the interpretation of the meaning of the signals you're receiving from your environment. And free will. Free will comes in because we can choose to resist our nature as it arises. Whereas every other being responds, the behavior just happens in response to the interpretation of its environment. Behavior just happens. Whereas we can, feel the desire or the impulse to yell at someone or scream at them, and we can choose to withhold it. And that goes for any other part of our nature. The desire to love someone, we can withhold it. The desire to share our feelings, we can withhold it. And that's an extraordinary aspect of the evolution of human beings. Just unreal. We've evolved to be like a universe unto ourselves. It's quite incredible. And so when you understand all three, when you understand the genius of all three of those, then you can concede your inferiority to each part. You can concede to the body. You're the master alchemist. You're the master alchemist. So I'm going to leave the job of refusing the energy that I put into my body into whichever form of matter or life or, mineral, vitamin, whatever the hell you think we need. I'm going to leave that to you, and I'm not going to try and control you in that way. That's your job. That's your genius. That's up to you. And then you can say, okay, well, the genius of the mind is it's the architect. And so I'm going to leave the job of imagining and envisaging everything that I want to create in my life to my mind. And I'm going to receive every thought, knowing that it can see the potentiality and the possibility of what we can become, because it's not limited by time, space, money, anything. And I'm going to allow it to show me the greatest potential it can see for us as one being, the three of us. And, over time you begin to realize that, you can actually reject your thoughts as well. So you realize it doesn't have any control over you, only influence. This is another extraordinary part of free will is, we can reject our thoughts. We can receive a thought and we can reject it, set it aside. We can receive an emotion, suppress it, reject it, deny it. Body can send us an impulse and we can repress it. So you can see the free will of each individual part. You can put something in your body and your body can reject it and deny it. So there's individual sovereignty of each individual component, and each of them can try and impose their will on the other, and the other is free to reject it. But once you understand, and most human beings are walking around trying to in resistance to their inferiority, trying to feel big. But the inferiority that most people are in resistance to is preventing them from empowering the part of themselves that is the genius with that job. So what we want is we want the body to be the genius at alchemizing. We want the soul to be the genius at interpreting the meaning of the signals around us, because it holds the wisdom of everything that has ever lived. And then the mind, it can see the unlimited potential of what it is we can become. And the soul wants to become more and more and more and more. So you can see how you can already see how they can help each other. So what the soul, because everyone has free will, when you're dealing with someone who has free will, you understand that their presence is what their power is. And so rather than, assuming that you can have someone's energy, you invite them. You say, hey, are you free for a catch up? I'd love to talk about XYZ with you. And they can say yes or no. That's where the free will comes in. And so, we can say to our mind, show me the highest potential for me to experience joy in my life. And understanding that it has free will, that you may receive a thought straight away, but understanding that you have to be prepared to receive all of your thoughts in order for you to see that potential. So if you're someone that walks around in resistance to your thoughts, trying to meditate to get rid of them all the time, or you stay awake at night and you're thinking all the time and you're trying to figure out how to get rid of your thoughts rather than interpret them, this will be a challenge for you. So you invite your mind, please reveal the highest potential for me to enjoy my life. Show me the highest potential for the kind of home I would absolutely love to live in. And that's the beauty of the mind in symbiosis with the soul, is all of a sudden you've got the wisdom of all that has been in the soul, able to see the potential of what else it can become, you see. So thought comes in, the soul chooses to receive it and give it her presence. I refer to the soul as feminine. She receives it like it's a seed. And the more of her presence she gives that thought, the more the thought becomes more. It's like it's gestating. It's a creation gestating. I receive the thought. Oh, it's becoming a vision. It's like a painting unfolding. And at some point, the interpretation will come, and that is inspiration, the spark of inspiration. You interpret the meaning, and meaning is what materializes matter, quite literally. The meaning sends the signal to the body, and that's the interpretation. So this is the nature of all life. It's the nature of all life. But it's only when we're living in a state of non-resistance to all of the aspects of ourself, where we concede to the genius of each individual component of us. The soul admits it's inferior to the mind at certain things. The mind admits it's inferior to the soul in certain things. Likewise with the body. And you're in a state of harmony, receiving every thought, nurturing every thought with your presence, imbuing it with energy, interpreting what you're seeing, and then trusting that. Then just leaving it to the body, trusting the impulses that are sent by your body. And this is how to live in a harmonious state, trusting your thoughts, trusting your vision, and only moving forward and acting upon inspiration. Because that inspiration gives you the impetus to act in a specific way towards the realization of the interpretation of your vision. Now, easier said than done, because fear comes into it. You know, if you, let's say you ask your mind, what's the greatest potential of me to experience joy? And you see yourself on a stage in a massive stadium talking to a bunch of people. And at the moment, you've got agoraphobia and you're too scared to go outside. Now, you're going to have huge resistance to that potential. And so over time, you start working with it and you start saying to it, you know, what's the greatest potential for me to experience, you know, a state of fulfillment now? You know, what are the things in my life that I could be appreciating now that will move me towards my greatest potential? And so, you know, you begin interacting with these parts of yourself. You are asking yourself these questions, but understanding that you're addressing, you know, the three individual components that make up what you are, that you're a trinity of three things, symbiotic in nature, but each individual component is sovereign and free, and working together as one. So, excuse me. So, influence. You can influence each component part by understanding its nature, and you would call this manipulation, and the reality is that manipulation is what it is. So the three components, these parts of us are manipulating each other constantly to get what they want. But it's okay if you're working with the free will of that entity, if it's enabling them to receive what they want, and then, you know, it doesn't matter. But you know, I want to just hone in on influence and how this is all relevant to influence right now. Because influence, let's say you're someone, I'll give you a metaphor. Let's say you're someone who has a whole bunch of stuff, or let's say a whole bunch of money. And the way you live your life is you just store all this money in your bank. Now, your mind is connected to the mind. It's the mind we all share. You know, so it's the thoughts that it's giving you are also in context of the other thoughts it's giving other people that may or may not be being rejected by those people. And so this mind, it's, you know, sending thoughts. You know, it can see the highest potential of all human beings, you know, as a species, and it's dropping thoughts in each individual one, you know, with the intention of inspiring them towards realizing their potential. But it could drop a thought in this one, and this human being here, this human being rejects it. The mind can see that this person's going to keep rejecting it because they're full of fear. So they'll go to the next one. Maybe I can inspire this one towards this. And so rejecting your thoughts, when you reject your thoughts, you are missing out on massive potential in your life. Massive potential for you to evolve, grow and expand, experience joy, whatever it may be. The opportunities you're missing are just unbelievable. And if you, because your nature, the way you have evolved is you've evolved to meet an unmet need of another part of nature. This is how all of nature works. It's all symbiotic. Everything everything exists to meet the unmet need of something else, not in servitude to it, but just by expressing its nature, it is meeting an unmet need of something else. The same goes for human beings. And so the mind can see that potential in you. It knows what your genius is. You know, whether it's as an accountant or a basketball player or a violinist or a painter or a number of different things. It understands your genius, and it's trying to get you to appreciate it. First you have to see it, recognize it, and then begin appreciating it, meaning use the bloody thing. Use it or lose it. And so it is always constantly trying to inspire us towards realizing the genius that we have within, so that we can then begin appreciating it. And if we begin using it and appreciating it ourselves, it'll eventually meet the unmet need of some other part of life. But lots of people will never realize that genius that they have within them. They'll never tap into it, never tune into it. The mind understands this, and as frustrated as it is trying to manipulate the entire situation. So back to the metaphor, if you've got a ton of money in the bank, let's say you've got millions of dollars in the bank, but you live frugally and you never spend it, that's a major issue for nature. It's a major issue for nature. And so nature is always seeking to have that money being utilized, appreciating something that it wants to grow. So it'll be planting thoughts in people who have this money, and it will be manipulating them and potentially tricking them, or not tricking them, but definitely manipulating them into scenarios, situations that will get them to spend it on something, on appreciating something. Because understand, as far as nature is concerned, any money sitting in a bank doing nothing is wasted potential. It's the latent potential to appreciate something. And from the perspective of the mind, that is the most one of the greatest issues that creates stagnancy and is limiting the evolution of human beings. Because it understands that the way life evolves is everything that's being appreciated is expanding and growing and becoming more. Like if you're let's say you've got a ton of stuff around in your house that you never use, then it's all of that in the same way is like the latent potential to be appreciating something else. From nature's perspective, the stuff that you're not appreciating, meaning that stuff you're not using on a day-to-day basis, is much better utilized, being sent to the center of the earth to be refused into some other form of matter, so that nature itself can evolve to meet an unmet need, whether that's through the birthing of another human being with a unique gift that can meet an unmet need, or whether it's a new kind of plant that will meet an unmet need of another plant, or a new species of bird, or a new mineral, or more of another mineral. This is a huge issue for nature. Money in the bank and clutter around the house. And nature's always trying to get money into the hands of people willing to spend it appreciating things that they want to grow. I think, one of the phenomenon that really fascinates me is, food that goes moldy. if you've got food there, it's ripe, it's beautiful, it's ready to be eaten. But if it's not appreciated, all of a sudden, out of thin air comes this, this moldy stuff, and it begins going into the process of the earth bringing it back in so it can be refused into another form of life. The truth is that even the spare set of golf clubs you've got that you use once a decade is in the process of being taken back into the center of the earth. It's only the things that we're appreciating that are evolving life, that are becoming more. So, this is how the mind will influence us. It will specifically give a thought to a human being with the intention of manipulating them into something they may not be intending to do. And this is why lots of human beings mistrust the mind, or they feel like they'll receive a thought or a vision, and they'll feel like it's manipulative. They'll feel like they're being manipulated into something. And the truth is, they are. They actually are being manipulated a lot of the time. But here's the thing to understand, is that it's always for the benefit of that person. Always for the benefit of that person. Now, they might go through a crappy experience of being this extremely frugal person with millions of dollars in the bank, and then they find themselves that they've actually spent the majority of that money, but not realizing that that's how nature wanted that money to be utilized and spent. And they may have the perspective that they've even lost that money, but from the perspective of nature, there's never any detrimental experience. There's always a reason that is benefiting the evolution of the species, the evolution of nature itself. Even if someone is bankrupted or whatever it may be, there is always a benefit to nature itself. So, influence is very, very interesting. It's very interesting. Manipulation, I think deception does come into it. Deception is part of nature. And I think when we knowingly withhold all of the truth, then there's always a deception going on. But I think when you understand that everything is sovereign and everything is free, that's manipulation, in fact, is actually neutral. But you understand the nature of the person you're trying to influence so deeply that you are manipulating the environment in a way that is conducive to them doing what you want them to do. In the same way that if you have a garden and you want something to grow in a specific way, then you manipulate the environment around it so that it can realize its full potential. It's very, very similar to that. So that's really all I wanted to talk about with the nature of influence, is that, nature is always trying to get you to carry the species forward. It's always trying to get you to appreciate your gifts, to appreciate your genius, and everything that is not being appreciated, whether it's the golf clubs in the cupboard, whether it's all the stuff around you that you own that you never use, or whether it's money sitting in your bank. Nature is always conspiring for all of those things to be appreciated. And if there's no way for those things to be appreciated, then it's trying to bring them back into the earth to be refused into something that can meet an unmet need. And so you'll feel a very strong pull from nature, where you have if you've got a ton of money that's doing nothing, you'll have a lot of people trying to get it. You'll have a lot of people trying to utilize it, trying to get you to back things, and you'll even be getting thoughts yourself. And, those people around you are being inspired by that mind, that same mind that is inspiring you, to invite you to utilize your money to appreciate things. And exactly the same with the stuff lying around your house. And, at a deeper level, there's just one more thing I want to share about influence, and that is, and it's linked to appreciation. So if you're, actually, no, I want to talk about the influence on your body. The best way to approach your body is to view it as a child. It's the child of the mind and the soul. So imagine the mind and the soul coming together. Together they have a child, and that child is really a hybrid of both. But when you raise a child, you don't tell it what to do. Well, you're not meant to. It's the way that it's evolved is that it mimics its parents, copies them. And so the same goes with the body. So if you want, your body to be a certain way, the best way to influence your body is to live a certain way. So let's say, if you're living your life in a way where you're obligated to be doing something that you don't want to be doing, and you're doing that thing and you're not being appreciated. So if you're surrounding yourself with things and people that are not appreciating you and that you don't appreciate, then that's what your body will do. That's what your body will do. If you surround yourself with people and with things that you do appreciate, meaning you use these things that are around you on a daily basis, they're imbued with your presence, you're utilizing them to create things, they're imbued with your presence. And you don't keep anything around you that isn't like that. You don't have things cluttering up your house, doing nothing. You don't have people around you that don't appreciate you. You're not doing things in your life against your will. You're appreciating your own gifts. You're appreciating your own genius. You're using your gifts, and the people around you are appreciating those things. Your body will copy you. It'll copy you. It will surround itself with things that it appreciates and that appreciate it. And so it'll be drawn to those things. And so then, once you start being the way that you want to be in the world and living the way that you want to live, you can slowly begin to trust your impulses again, in the same way that you can trust your thoughts are always taking you to your highest potential. You can trust the impulses of your body are going to be drawing in the things that your body appreciates, that your body wants to have close, that appreciate your body. And in time, you'll cultivate such deep levels of self-trust that, you'll feel incredibly free. And, the three component parts of that make you a human being will be collaborating together towards a unified intent of purpose. And that is for all of you to appreciate your own genius, each other's genius, and to realize even higher and higher potential of what you can become. Okay, I'll leave it there. That's it for now for the nature of influence. Talk soon.